When we think of great action films, many come to mind. Die Hard, Rambo, and that's me just sticking to the kind of 80s and 90s. But even in the modern era, we had things like The Raid Redemption, we had John Wick, which will probably go down as a classic action film down the line. We even had things like Mad Max Fury Road, who went back to this over the top kind of practical looking thing. And Dread, such an underrated action film that tried to harken back to the movies of the 90s. There is one that's head and shoulders above them all, and that's Terminator 2. I have many varied arguments to put to you about why Terminator 2 is the best. And honestly, if you disagree with me, you're kind of wrong and you should leave. No, come back. Come back and watch. I'm a kid. Let's dive in to why I think Terminator 2 is the greatest action movie ever made.
Ba 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 ba.
We find out that Skynet didn't only send a machine back to 1980, but also 1995. In 1995, they actually sent back a newer model of Terminator, the T-1000. This was a liquid metal Terminator that could shapeshift into basically anything that wasn't complex machinery, like a person or a floor, or turn his hands to knives. His mission was to kill John Connor as a child. Easy mission, right? Not when the Resistance decide to send back a reprogrammed T-800, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger again, to protect John. We have a lovely tense moment of them trying to figure out where John is, and us as an audience figure out who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. You kind of click on quite quick that Arnie's the good guy because the trailers gave it away. Because my god, why can't trailers keep anything a secret? Once the T-800 finds John, it confirms everything John's been told as a kid about the future, about Skynet and the machine. We find out that Sarah's been living in a mental institution for the last few years. You know, getting attacked by a robot when you're only like 18 can mess with your mind a little bit. John decides that they need to save Sarah because they know that the T-1000 might try and replicate Sarah, and in doing so, kill her. Needless to say, they save Sarah and they come to the conclusion that this might be the moment to defeat Skynet once and for all. Also, Linda Hamilton comes back to play Sarah Connor. Just realised I forgot to say. And Sarah's plan is to kill him before Skynet is born. This is when they find out why Skynet becomes Skynet. The old Terminator parts from 1984 are found by Cyberdyne Systems, and they're using them to work on microprocessors that are revolutionary technology for the time. John convinces Sarah not to kill Miles, to instead go and find the rest of the Terminator parts. This leads into our big crescendo and climax, where the two Terminators go blow to blow and we get our happy ending. When you hear the story like this, it's pretty by the books of an action film. We have a end of the world thing that could happen. Our heroes eventually go and do the right thing, and we win in the end. So why is it Terminator 2's story is so much more compelling than, say, Die Hard for me? Well, unlike most action films whose job is just to get you to your next big set piece, Terminator 2 takes breaks to actually give you some story and give you some emotional and character development with Sarah, John, the T-800 and even Miles. And it's these slower points that actually make it a brilliant action film. Not saying the action's bad, the action is superb, but it's these slow moments that actually pace the film in a way that doesn't make you feel fatigued at the end. I've came out of the cinema after seeing a gigantic action film, say like Rampage. It's too much visual stimulation to the point that you're exhausted. There needs to be a little gap in there to let you digest what you just seen. But we don't come to action films for the story. Now do we?
Ba 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 ba.
We come for the action. And Terminator 2 has it in spades. From the opening kind of car chase, well, it's more of a truck getting chased by a motorbike, which is chasing another motorbike. It's beautiful. It's epic, it's full of dread, and it's full of tension. And also it's practical. It's peak 90s goodness. But these action scenes work, as I said before, because there's breaks between them, which gives them so much more gravitas when they come. Other big moments is Arnie with the minigun mowing down the police officers, which again, done practically, just looks gorgeous. It just feels big and epic, and it's something I feel that CGI can't replicate, knowing that there's someone actually standing there with a giant gun with actual small explosions on a car happening. CGI can't do that. No matter how good it can be, there's some disconnect there, and that's why I love 90s action films in general. What makes this action work though is the action's meaningful. It's not just a fight for the sake of a fight. Terminator shows you the action. It doesn't let the action happen and then cut away to someone's reaction of the action. It's happening, and we get to see it in its full glory. We also get some amazing stunts of a helicopter actually flying under a bridge, of a truck actually getting driven off of a bridge. Wow, they do a lot with bridges. Because you also have the truck chase on the bridge that falls over into the refinery. I really had a thing for bridges in this film. One of the other groundbreaking things this film did with its action is the use of VFX. They used it sparingly because you had to back then, and I found that made it a lot more creative. Like having the liquid Terminator, that was the budget, was on making that thing look good, and it did look good. Only now, after watching it again a couple of days ago, that I realised it's starting to look a tiniest bit dated, and that says a lot from a movie from 1991. The understanding of characters and how they would react to big things is done really well with the Terminators. So the Terminators meet for the first time and have a fight, and it's full of confusion, and watching them just try to push each other through walls because they don't know how to fight with each other, which again makes their confrontations tense. It's nice to see tension between the things that are meant to be overpowered. And it's all these little things that make the action of this film really impactful. It makes you want more. You want to see more action. You want to get to the next bit. It doesn't give you so much that you can't be arsed seeing it anymore. And that's what makes the action in this film beautiful.
Ba 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 ba.
This is what sets it apart from every other action film I've seen. Now, I've watched plenty. I love explosions. I love action films. It's my favourite genre, by far. I love being able to just switch my mind off and just allow it to happen. But Terminator 2 doesn't allow that to happen. It keeps you in it because you become emotionally invested in the characters. And I'll tell you how. By giving you time with each of the main characters and even some of the B characters, so that you know what their motivations are, you know what their feelings are, and you start empathising with them. The best example of this is John and his relationship with the T-800. So when John meets the T-800 and figures out that this thing has to do as he says, John does what any 10-year-old would do. Just act the goat, rip the piss, and eventually just open up to it because it listens to him.
A day and maybe in this world later. That'll be all she wrote.
Torque range, please.
Here.
With no judgment, and really nicely, this is how they get away with some of their exposition. This is how we find out about Sarah being in a mental asylum. Because a 10-year-old would just talk and tell this silent machine that wants to listen to him. So we find out some information in a really lovely way, but what really makes that work is watching John find a father figure in the machine and watching the machine slowly change to be more human. And it's beautiful because it shows what these AIs could be, and it makes what happens at the end so much more heart-wrenching because we watched T-800 go from being a cold killing machine to a warm, almost human, who cracks jokes, who makes quips.
Holy shit.
I need a vacation.
Who became what John needed him to be. And this leads into Sarah, who has to accept that this machine is actually a better father than anybody that she's had in her life. She even says so herself.
The Terminator would never stop. It would never leave him. And it would never hurt him, never shout at him or get drunk and hit him or say it was too busy to spend time with him. It would always be there, and it would die to protect him.
Her story arc with that isn't as deep as John's, but it's still impactful, and she eventually respects the machine towards the end. And that's your main cast. Like, you watch them grow together. They become a family. But it doesn't just do this with the main cast. We get a nice wee B character in Miles Dyson. Once he's told about what's happening with the future, he decides to join them. And when he does, we get to see who he is. We get to see his family. We get to see the type of man he is. Just a clever guy who was passionate about propelling humankind forward. And he makes a sacrifice because he knows what these machines and his technology will eventually become. And they spent enough time with him that you felt for him. You felt bad when he made his sacrifice. You didn't want him to. And that's what makes this the best action film of all time. It's not even because of the action, because the characters are so well written and emotional that you can't help but love them or loathe them. Because the T-1000 is the epitome of evil because he's cold. He's almost cat-like in how he hunts. He moves and looks at things alien, but he comes across just human enough to make him sinister. It's almost like a psychopath, and there's something very off about him. Every one of the characters that were given a decent amount of screen time were given time to have their own personality. They weren't a characterization, they had their own personality. This decision to focus on character development is such a good decision for an action film, because doing the action set pieces is fun, but it's your characters that get you from A to B, that get you from action to action. And if they're boring or unempathetic or you can't invest in them, you don't invest in the film.
Ba 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 ba.
Are you sick of it yet? These are the reasons why I think T2 is the best action film ever made. It does things that people have tried to replicate. It's done things people have never even tried to go near. And it's been groundbreaking since the 90s. It's been quotable since the 90s. It's like, it's even showing up in things like Fortnite today. How can you not put that as a classic and the greatest? But what do you think? Do you think I'm just talking absolute nonsense? Is there another film out there that you think could take the crown? If you have one, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching. Till next time.